Good afternoon. It's Monday, June 22nd. It's probably a minute or two past 4 o'clock. We are now going to bring the Roswell Infrastructure Committee meeting to order. Could I please get a roll call vote? I'm sorry,
Roll
roll call, just a call, no vote. Council Robick here.
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 Great. And can I get a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes for the April 27, 2020 meeting.
Yes.
And a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, E, non-action item, Wyoming Alley Bike Trail discussion. Mr. Nahar.
Mr. Chairman, committee, our first item is the Wyoming Trail. And this is one of the proposals, many of the many options that we have with the bicycle pedestrian plan. And the reason this one was chosen, just because of the location and the probable ease of which it could be implemented. As you see there, you can see the golf course on the very left, and just right of the golf course is the alley in question, for the people along Wyoming. And right across 8th Street is where the trail comes in, right in alignment with the alley. So next slide, please. And that gives you a little bit more detail of where the trail meets the alley. There on 8th Street. Next slide. And this is the alley. Of course, look at the picture there. One of the things that we were doing the plan, the alley looked recent and in pretty good shape. Since we started the plan, the alley is kind of will need a pavement overlay or some addressing. Again, that's past condition. But again, you can see why at one time it was a very good, logical, easy fix, easy thing to do with the trail. The trail's right across the street. You would just cross over there. People do use it now. The golfers also use it there as a secondary access to the golf course. The reason we're here now is that we did get a petition from the residents on Wyoming Street, led by Mr. Richard Hesse. We do have some citizens that wish to speak for the trail as proposed and against the trail, which is what the petition is. And what I'll do, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, is I'll bring in them one at a time, or a group at a time. And the first one will be Mr. and Mrs. Matt Hinkle.
Sure, just real quick before we bring them in, I had a quick question. And
Yes,
I want to
sir.
see if any
Yes, sir.
councilors had questions. So, this plan is proposed. I assume that we'd be adding a bike lane to Riverside Drive.
There would not be no bike lane on Riverside Drive. It would be shared.
Okay.
What we would be doing, so we would have to, right now, the condition of the alley, and then probably when I'm done with the water valve project, we'll need some sort of overlay or surface treatment.
Sure.
You'll also need you'll need a crosswalk there at 8th Street.
Yeah.
You'll also need signage to bring them down in both directions, down the alley and then down Riverside, and then south on Montana to the trail there. So part of the cost that we looked at a few months ago was about $6,000 for the signage and the crosswalks and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Now that there's going to be some surface treatment needed on the alley, that cost would go up.
Sure.
Of course, right now with the COVID, anything over $5,000 we need to review. So if and when the budget gets back to close to normal or new normal, you as infrastructure would be reviewing this on what we would be doing. But for right now, the citizens are concerned, and it's our obligation to listen to the citizens on both sides.
Sure, absolutely. Question?
Yes, Mr. Nahar, I had a question. You said that the alley is currently a secondary access for people utilizing the golf course.
Yes, using the golf course, and then you have people taking shortcuts through the trail there unofficially. Right now, it's an alley, but it was semi-paved, and the golfers use it, and people use it right now for shortcuts.
So if this would be the bike path, then there would be no vehicles allowed on there?
If this was to be the bike path, my thinking was that we would cut it off to vehicular traffic, but we would have to put some sort of mechanism so the citizens could still access with their motorhomes, their boats, that
I
kind of
see.
stuff. And then also for the grappler trucks, if the citizens put stuff in the alley as they normally do, they would have to have access for the grappler trucks to pick it up. Right now, the citizens are using the 96-gallon individual containers, and they have to roll them out. And if you remember over the public forums and stuff, it has been in the past that we want to kind of go towards that citywide. Well, we went with that because just a few weeks ago, we closed that alley because of the water valve construction. We're waiting on parts, and we're going to go back in there and close that alley again.
Okay,
So for right now, they are on the 96 gallons until the project's over, and then, of course, solid waste, Abraham Chaparro, and then we'll decide if they want to continue that or not.
thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
I think, yeah, we can go and bring in anybody who wanted to speak on this.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring in committee, I'll bring in the ones that brought in the petition, so they're against using this. And then when the group changes, then I'll bring in the other group.
Great, if you're speaking, you want to go on, the microphone's going to be right up there. And if you are waiting to speak, if you can grab any of these chairs back here, that would be fine as well. And just as a couple reminders, we're not taking action on this today. We are just here to gather information and listen to what people have to say. Also, too, I'm not giving you a time limit, but just please be succinct and we'll be good.
All right. Can I take my mask off?
It's up to you.
All right. My name is Matt Hinkle. This is my wife, Susan Hinkle, and we live at 70 Riverside. Our house is located at the end of Riverside and the alley. We're at the bottom of the alley, so to say. We heard about this. We do not like the 96-gallon dumpster. We would rather prefer have our UFO back. We did get it back for temporary. He was nice enough to give us it back. But, you know, our alley and everybody's alley in this town is basically a secondary right-of-way used for utility access and waste removal, not a hike and bike trail, not a pedestrian access. And I was going to ask the city, would you have to rezone this? Okay, well, I just don't think it's fair to single out our alley as to make it a hike and bike trail because of that. Also, number two, if you put that bike trail back there behind our house, it's going to be an invasion of privacy for us because that is our backyard. And we have a pool back there. And what y'all be doing is inviting Roswell just to get a tour of our backyard. It's freaky when you come out of the water and somebody's looking right through your fence at you. And, you know, that's never really happened but a few times at this point. If the city advertises to bring that walk through there, then we're going to have, I see up to 3,000 or 4,000 people a day walking down Spring River with bikes, skateboards, and everything. Now, you bring that traffic behind my house, that's not going to be fun for us. That's going to be a severe invasion of our privacy. And our fence is about 3 feet high, and like a 10-year-old boy or girl can stick their arm out if they reach through our fence, and their hand would be over our pool. So that's how close we are. There's zero setback there. And they're going to be right on top of us, and it's not going to be any fun. So, you know, the criminal aspect, you bring that down through there, you're gonna bring a lot more people, and you're gonna have a few bad apples casing houses back there for burglarization. And so not only our house has a short fence, but we have a neighbor down the street, he has a chain link. It's wide open to whatever he's doing back there. So, and then as far as we know, from our standpoint of living there, it's dangerous because number 10T box at Nancy Lopez is right on that fence. And if somebody snap hooks a ball down that alley, you could have somebody get killed. Golf balls kill. And we've had them bounce by us, just dumping our trash. So, you know, that's just another aspect that we don't like of it. Number 4, bringing that trail down Riverside, I don't understand that at all. Because one, Riverside's a small street. I don't think it's even 30 feet wide. Number 2, the intersection at Wyoming and Riverside is very dangerous. People do not stop for that stop sign. They go flying through there. There's big trees and stuff, and I've seen a wreck, and I've seen some real close calls. And at the top of the alley where the bike trail would kick out into Cielo Grande, you have the golfers coming out of that driveway right parallel with where you're going to come out with that alley. Somebody's not going to see a bicycler coming through, coming down, or going up, and they're going to hang a right, and they're going to hit them. So that's another dangerous deal on that. But our main deal here is our privacy. It's just, you know, you're going to take away our privacy. People, we don't have a big 8-foot wall fence. We only got like a 3-foot, 2-foot in spots because it had to go down to match the level. But, and people are going to stop and be looking. We're going to be swimming back there, you know. I mean, do you guys want that at your house? Up to 3,000 or 4,000 people a day doing that? Anyway, and then my idea has always been on the alternate route is to take that trail up Mississippi Street. Mississippi Street is only like 100 yards maybe from where Montana kicks out. You're going to have to kick out on Montana anyway. Mississippi has no traffic on it to say. And it's 40-foot wide. It's a good street in good shape, and it kicks out up at Cielo Grande. You would eliminate all the bikes going down Riverside, all the accidents that might happen go all the way down there and all the way coming out at the pro shop. So I would also say Mississippi would be the choice I would do if I was involved in this. The other choice is over on Aspen, behind the bird sanctuary over there somewhere. But, you know, I know they have a problem with the fee access over there, but it can kick back into Cielo Grande somewhere up 8th. And that would be the safest because there's not a lot of traffic coming down at that point. You know, from Sycamore to that juncture, wherever you made it, there wouldn't be a whole lot of traffic at that point, or coming from the east. It's wide open. So you have plenty of time to tell drivers you got bikes crossing and bikes crossing. You know what I'm saying? But if you congest it down there by the golf course, you got a jackpot happening there, because we just walking our kids and stuff down there, it's always like, who's going, you know, and here comes the cars, and they're flying out of that golf course. But anyway, and then Mississippi's a good spot too, because it's far away from the Montana intersection and far enough away from anything coming from the west that you can go across there and be right on the trail right there. Here, look at this. Sorry. And so that's where we feel that would be the safest. After the water thing gets done, the valves get replaced, we would like to see our trash cans replaced, our UFOs, and we would also like to see our alley come back to where it is. I have one other thing for the city, is that you put the turn sign for the Spring River Golf Course, Nancy Lopez Golf Course, at the intersection of Wyoming.
Before the church.
No, it's in the turn right now. You need to put that sign another 50 or I don't know how many yards, 30 yards down so people will know, okay, turn up Wyoming. We don't like cars going up that alley. You know, the golfers, I think they're slowing down because I asked Carlton and them to please put a sign out to quit coming down our alley because it's blind when you get to the bottom of that alley. And they've kind of, but the general public, I don't know what it is. They come to that dead end, they turn around in front of our house all the time, and they go the other way. And it's just a pain in the butt, you know, and it's dangerous. Especially if you're coming off Riverside, going up the alley to dump your trash. I've almost gotten run over a few times. And it's all because that thing's paved. So, I don't know, my wife has a couple things she would like to say,
I
and
think you covered most of it. You know, I do have pictures, because we get affected more than anybody, because we have the front, our house, it covers the front and the side. So if you make these changes, it really affects our life, because we sit out on our porch to try to enjoy the day, and when I'm swimming in the pool, we're gonna get our privacy violated. So, and then I've already got my hands taken care of now. I have ALS in my life. So this is my second battle for this year.
but I thank you guys for hearing us out, and I guess Richard would probably like to talk next.
Thank you very much.
All right. Here we go again.
And while they're moving, I did go down right before this meeting. I did drive our scooter through that alley, so I'm aware of the property you're talking about. So please say your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Richard Hesse. I live at 706 North Wyoming. I purchased that property in 1997 with several things in mind. One, I didn't have anybody behind me other than the golf course parking lot, which is empty at night, so I had clear view. I had access to my alley so I could get my vehicles in and out. And it was a nice, quiet neighborhood. Sierra Grande had not been built yet, therefore it was really quiet. Since Sierra Grande's completion, the whatever phase it's in now, we've had an increase in burglaries, shootings, unsavory characters just hanging around. Had one the other night that this was a mentally disturbed young man that was following my son like he was being hunted. We called the police on him and he was hauled off and taken care of. That's fine. In the last 9 weeks, I have called the police at least 4 times. One for gunshots outside my house on the corner of 8th and Wyoming, which is only about 150 feet away from my bedroom window. Number 2, for a drunk fighting with his driver or whatever right out in front of my house. And this is all at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, now what we're looking at is a change to our way of life. You know, I understand the infrastructure, the whole ball and wax about changing the valves out that are drastically in need of repair. That's no big deal to change our garbage cans out for a temporary fix while they do the construction and that. We got to have trash removal. But when you go and close down that alley 100% and you cut off my drive to my backyard so I can't get in and out of there because now you've designated it a bike path or a jogging path or whatever y'all want to call it, that diminishes my property rights and diminishes my, it cuts back on my finances. I mean, it makes my property less value because right now I have access through that my 12-foot back gate right off of the golf course. I can go right through the parking there and I can park a large motor home or my pickup truck or whatever, and when I go to sell it, that is motor home parking. Guess what that does to my property value? It raises it up. But if that's cut off, my property value drops by about $30,000. I don't like having money taken out of my pocket. I don't think you folks do either. My big issue, starting all of this, was the increase in foot traffic blocking off the alley access to 5 properties that have large gates, and we all use them for our trailers, motorhomes, etc. Also, more volumes of people, and I think Matt pointed it out, over 20,000 people coming down our alley in our neighborhood a day. Really? Maybe I should go buy property at the mall if I want that. It's really disturbing that for a special interest group to propose this and for the city to say, well, it's the easiest way. It's the most cost-effective way. But whose backs is that on? That's on the property owner's back. That's on my back, my property value, Matt's property value, his privacy. Brent Baker, his access to his property because he has 4 or 5 trailers that he keeps back in his backyard out of sight. And I can go on. I went down the whole list, the whole street. I only missed 2 people that I couldn't get a signature on. The 3rd property is vacant, and I don't know who owns it. All of the rest of these people are vehemently opposed to this change. An alleyway is an alleyway. It's for our trash removal, refuge, whatever you want to call it, the grappler, and for utilities. My power goes down that alley. My phone goes down that alley. My cable comes down that alley. And I'm at the end. I'm all the way at near 8th Street. There's only one house between me and 8th Street. And that's Mark and Cindy Stone's house. And they're opposed to it too, because they just put up a garage, a workshop in their backyard. Nice, big metal. And his access to that, he planned it so that he had a roll-up door facing the alley so that he could take his car out the alley and around. Had he known this was going to happen, he might have changed the plans to that and spun it so that he would have access off of 8th Street. But he didn't. Now he's going to have to change his whole structure, which is impossible to do with that particular building, but he'll have problems with it. There's so many different options here. Yes, I understand Wyoming Alley is easy. It was paved at one time. It's breaking up now because of its age. But to deny the access and the services that the city provides is wrong. We pay for those services, such as the grappler, the trash pickup, and those 300-gallon trash cans service 2 houses, maybe even 3 houses. They're designed for 3. But on the average, there's 6 cans down the alley, or used to be. Well, on wear and tear on a machine, I'm an industrial mechanic, and I worked for years wear and tear on machine out at Leprino Foods. The less activity you have on one hydraulic piece of equipment, the less times it raises and lowers. Doesn't matter the weight. They're designed for so many lifts. Okay, it doesn't make sense to me to go down that alley and pick up 6 cans on a trash day, and now it's been changed, and now they have to pick up 11 cans on the street. So, where's the savings here? I'm sure there are insurance savings and all kinds of things that the city figures into this stuff. But the bottom line is, all of my services for trash removal are being altered in a dramatic way. When they drop those cans off, the 96-gallon cans, they gave us a nice little write-up, told us that all trash and all dog refuse should be bagged, all stuff should be bagged, leaves should be bagged, this should be bagged. Well, I kind of understand that because it's a little can, and when they pick it up, you don't want stuff just flying out on the street. But the problem is, it's changing who has to pay for what. Okay, now it's going to cost me a whole lot more for my bags because I've got to bag everything, where before I just take my wheelbarrow and just go dump it in the 300-gallon. I've never seen them dump, at least in my alley, never seen a problem with them picking that 300-gallon can up, dumping it into the truck. I've never seen anything spill out of it. Maybe I've just not watched it all the time. I don't know. Benefit of the doubt. But it's changing my life. Because now the garbage that I take out, literally the chicken trays from Albertsons that go in my garbage, and they sit in there, and I put them outside, and they get kind of smelly a little bit. Well, those used to all be in the alley. Nobody had a complaint. The smell wasn't that bad in that 300-gallon can because we always kept the lid shut. But now it's on the side of my house. Now I got to make sure I roll it out there. If I got something that is kind of getting a little bit rancid in this 100-degree heat, I got to make sure it's out there. That's my issue right now. But like I said, I understand the infrastructure problem and why this had to be done at this point. But if this proposal goes through and those trash cans are, we don't discuss about returning those 300-gallon trash cans because now it's a bike trail. Now there's another problem. Because now I'm going to have to change the access to my backyard. I just put in a shed in my backyard, 16 by 10, that I have to have access for my pickup truck to carry stuff in and out of that shed. I've still got another storage unit to empty and put in there. Everything's been put on hold right now. So if the bike trail's there, not only do we have more traffic, foot traffic, people looking in my backyard, seeing what I've got, I'm going to have to put up more cameras because I don't want people coming in my backyard. I've already had problems with pecan thieves and whatnot. So as far as that goes, I don't want the traffic. I don't want the blocking of the alley. I want my access because that's what I bought this house for. Unless the city wants to, pony up $40,000 to put in a driveway through my front yard, through my front fence, so that I can get into the backyard, then you can close it off. But then I'm going to have to raise my height of my fence too, up by about 2 courses a block, about 16 to 20 inches. So you kind of know where I stand. The petition pretty much says it all, real basic language. But these are some of the points. Another thing, I still don't know when my garbage pickup is outside. The city hasn't told me. They didn't, when they give us the garbage cans, they didn't write a little note on there. Your trash pickup will be Tuesdays and Fridays, or Wednesdays and Saturdays, or anything like that. I guess I can make a phone call. With that said, I think there's another gentleman that would like to speak about some of the legalities of this. I personally would like to see this changed, done away with. Don't bring it down my alley. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Please state your name and address for the record. There is no time limit, but brevity is the soul of wit.
Okay. My name is Stephen Vickers. I live at 507 North Wyoming, so I'm across the street from the bakers that he spoke about and a little bit northeast of Matt and Susan. I am here on behalf of myself and Jessica Thompson, who I live with. I'm 33 years old and she's 31, and the reason that I bring that up is that we fit into the median age demographic of Roswell, New Mexico, so I wanted to speak on behalf of a younger generation here. I agree with my neighbors. I am very concerned about the overall health and welfare and general safety of the community members in this area, as well as the community at large for this project. I'm going to briefly ask some questions. They're going to be yes or no questions with no implicit overtones or anything like that, just yes or no, because I don't really know how this works. So I'm going to throw those in there along with some statements if you'll be patient with me. My first question is the alley ADA compliant? Does the slope exceed the ADA recommendations and the compliance therein? Do we know that?
We don't know that right now.
I would suspect it is not, but I figured that's a study for a later date for you guys. How does the golf course superintendent feel about this project? Has anybody spoken to him?
Nobody's spoken to the golf course. Again, the alley is still the alley, so nobody's asking about it. Because one thing would be that we've had complaints in the past about golfer driving, so I'm sure he would get complaints just from his own customers.
The reason why I asked that is that I know that years back when I wasn't living here, but I was born and raised here, and I grew up on 67 Riverside, so I'm right where I used to live. Is I know that putting in the fence was quite an ordeal, is pretty controversial, and I understood that from the city's perspective, that was to prevent trespassing. And so I wondered if the golf course superintendent had any ideas about trespassing with easier access in an alley butting up to the golf course. Obviously, that's a city property, so on that side of it, you can kind of do whatever you want. I mean, it's your property, it's the city's property, so I just wanted to know about that. The other question I had is the money for this project coming from the Infrastructure Capital Improvements Project?
There's no money programmed for this one at this time, and it would be general funds from engineering or parks.
Okay. And engineering and parks budget comes off of gross receipts, taxpayer money, all that kind of stuff, right?
That is correct.
Okay. The reason that I ask you that is that I believe that there are streets, water lines, sewer lines around town that need to be fixed where that money could be better allocated at this point. Obviously, that's your decision as far as how you allocate money, but my 2 cents is that there are roads in disrepair, including that alley, which I don't think anybody would have a problem with paving the alley, but if we're moving in dirt to make the slope ADA compliant and we're using this access for the betterment of the community, I don't fully understand how that is better for the community, and that if we are all zoned within the residential zone, we already have Cielo Grande, we have an aquatic center, we have a golf course, we have parks, all of that falls into the R1 residential zone that we all live in. And so I think that we do have options for recreation for Roswell residents that already exist. Our mayor a month ago spoke about how COVID has impacted our community. The city, and largely economically, because our city thrives off gross receipts taxes. I've been an independent contractor for 8 years of my life, and so I understand that gross receipts do support our community and support projects like this. However, if we are interested in helping our small businesses get back on their feet, at the same time, I am concerned about the cost to the taxpayer for a project like this, if we have to move dirt in, whatever we have to do here. You all already touched on what would happen here, but I wanted to just clarify on things. Is the plan to just in the bike path at the end of Riverside, or are we going to be taking out the fence, cutting down trees on the golf course? How is that going to extend all the way past the bridge to the bike trail on the other side of the park?
The bike trail as this option, and there are many options. This one would go down the alley to Riverside, then the traffic would turn east to Montana, then south of Montana to the Spring River Trail.
Okay. So we're not,
We're not going to the golf course, no.
okay. I guess to expound on my neighbor's point, I turned about this from a crime perspective. Because of all the issues that they already talked about, we have had, the Bakers who live across the street from me did have cops investigating a man who was trying to rob things, or trying to take things from their shed, and so there are issues with people walking up and down that alley. We sit across the street, and our alley goes east and west. We have people coming from Matt Hinkle's house over to our alley, looking through our trash, looking over our fences, and so we are generally concerned with the existing easements that we have with certain people coming around. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that we have to prevent people from going where they have a public right to be. However, advertising a certain area for people to be whenever they can look through people's backyards, or as Susan said, touch them across their fence, is a general safety concern for the entire community, not just the people who have property on the alley. Because if they're willing to do that to them, then we're concerned across the street as well. Because if they're willing to do that, then they can come over to us as well. And we have a short fence, so people can look in there anyway. We already have some issues with that. I spoke to a few police officers, and they were not in favor of this either, because they get calls from residents and from individuals with domestic issues, whatever they may be, but they are already in our area patrolling, and they don't want to be there unnecessarily. And so that is a concern for them, because right now we do want our police officers to be attending to violent crime and things that are important for them to do. So they were not in favor of this either. I realize this is a preliminary meeting, so we still have time to discuss all these things. After, if you'd like to ask me any questions, I can provide my contact information for you, and I'd love to speak to you more about this. But I do think that you should really take into account what the residents are thinking about this, because above all, I think we're most concerned with crime, and we don't want to live under those circumstances. Especially, we were probably the youngest couple on our street, but we are very concerned about that already, and we would like you to take that into account when you make a decision about this. I appreciate your time, and I will give you my contact information if you'd like to speak to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on in. I just want to remind everybody, this is not an action item. We're not taking any action on this today. Name and address for the record, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bob Edwards, 1212 West 7th. I've lived in the neighborhood, and I read Richard's article in Sunday's paper. And I'm on the Spring River Corridor Foundation, which does art projects along the Spring River Corridor. We've been looking at this particular program, joining the trails, for quite a few years, but it never caught any traction. We did come up with an idea Sally Tolles actually came up with the idea, to put bicycles out at the Aquatic Center. And so we did. We purchased 10 bicycles, $3,000, and then we had the guy down at Stellar Coffee put them together, put little bells on there, because anybody else who rides the trails doesn't understand the concept of a bell. And they're currently sitting there because they are another victim of COVID. The program was going to start in May and run until October, where people could come in, leave their firstborn male son or their driver's license, and rent a bike for 2 hours for $5, a nominal fee, so it wasn't going to break anybody. But unfortunately, that's on the back burner for the time being. As a companion to that, we saw the opportunity to join the two trails, because we also had an idea to do some art project, or a art project. There was a lady in Santa Fe, I think her name, and I'm not entirely sure, I could be saying the wrong name, Goodacre or something to that effect, who does bronze. And it was a statue of a bunch of children playing, and we had suggested that we would purchase that and put it in front of the aquatic center. But our charter says that we are on the Spring River corridor. So I guess technically, if we joined the two trails, then we would be able to do that. Little did we know that a furor would be created out of this. And I'm not belittling, your concerns, which I think are valid and so on. But since everything's on hold, let me just say a few things about what's been said, which is, this is another situation of NIMBY, not in my backyard. Now, the people who live over on 4th Street, who have the trail behind their house, between the golf course and their house, and who also have small little chain link fences, or in the case of the McMurtry house, it's a little bit taller, but they still face the same problems, and that's been that way for, 20 years. And now everybody is sort of like, okay, it's cool. Like I say, I live just 2.5 blocks away. I've heard few, if any, gunshots, to tell you the truth, and the same morons that you're concerned about, I'm concerned about, and they're in my neighborhood. And
Can we just address the comments to the committee, please?
Pardon?
Address the comments to the committee, please.
Oh, to you?
To the committee, yeah.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Well, I'm just,
I understand.
I'm trying to be inclusive.
I appreciate that.
But we all have those concerns, and I understand exactly. Now, here's another thing, too, which I hadn't thought of. The first two houses in the alley from the north, from the north, they're clear of any problems, because what has been suggested is at the alley where the putting green starts, that would be the one spot to be blocked. A pole, similar to what's in Cielo Grande, that has a lock on it, that you can take it off and put it back, and then at the far end by the Hinkles. So Richard's problems are somewhat evaporated as far as access. Now you have the golfers, who I don't know how many thousands of people are going down the alley, but they're there every day with even a height advantage looking into the backyards. So I don't know, there's a concern there maybe, who knows. The thing that we are going to come up with, that we have suggested as a possibility, is to put in these poles so there's no vehicle traffic except for the grappler truck and pool maintenance people. If they need to come in, they can't come in the front for some reason, but whatever. And providing keys to the poles so they can be removed. People can come in, get their trash that they throw over the fence for the grappler truck like everybody else, and then when they're done, lock it up. The grappler truck would have a key, and all the residents would have a key. And that way it kind of blocks it off. I know it's an interesting thing, and the numbers that have been bandied about, I can't imagine that all of a sudden there's going to be this tremendous influx of people walking down the alley or riding down the alley. Our purpose here, there was 4 choices that were posed to the city, and Jim Sexy drew up these diagrams and whatever, these overviews. One was on Montana and the bike trail. Correct. And the only trouble with that one is they would have to put in sidewalks all the way down, and they'd have to go into Jane Ann's property down there and tear out her trees, and I can hear her screaming already. So that was one, and that was like $138,000. The second one was down at the bird sanctuary, which was our initial #1 choice. But unfortunately, the problem is that 8th Street, in its many years of flux about where it's going to go, is still where it is. But the plan is eventually, I guess, to move it a little bit towards the north on a little curve, and then join up with the other 8th Street in Enchanted Hills. But they can't put the trail in there to join that to Cielo Grande until they do the road. So that one was sort of back burner, and Louis and I discussed this at length. The third option was about halfway up the hill, going to the east, just before the service road, going into the golf course, going across, putting a trail there, crushed composite, and then crossing over there and joining the trail on the runway. But that was $118,000. And the one going down where they have to go around that piece of rectangular property that the people will never sell to Roswell. And they just hate it so bad that they have to go around it. So everything is kind of stymied. So this was an obvious option. Now Mississippi, I heard Mississippi suggested as an option. But, and that's fine, they'd have to put in a new cutout from the existing Cielo Grande down to 8th Street, and then go down Mississippi, which is a wider street. Okay, that's fine. There you have safety concerns, which weren't mentioned, but they're mentioned on Riverside. But then when they get down to Riverside from Mississippi, where are they going to go? They're going to have to go to the corner. They're going to have to cross over by the tennis courts, which is the same thing we're doing, asking now to be done. So I don't know if there's really any answer here that'll fit everybody's little, niche, but I would suggest that we do this thing with the two blocking off, one, the south part and the north part, and in between, people want to throw their stuff over, there'll still be access for the grappler truck, because they'll have a key, they can get in there, the pool guys can get a key from the landowners, from the homeowners, they can get in there, and still leaves the same. Now, these numbers bandied about every thug in Roswell is going to come there like a magnet is just not, doesn't seem to be correct. My son is a lieutenant with the sheriff's department, and I know that if I call him, he's there in a minute. Now, it may be because of family, but the cops are pretty good about responding, and these morons are everywhere. So it's not going to just all of a sudden double or triple or whatever. They're going to be there regardless. Now, and I understand everybody's concern. Some of the fences along Wyoming are quite short. Some of them are much taller. I'm sure no one really thought of that when they did it initially, because things were safer then. But they're not as bad anymore. And in my neighborhood, something's amiss. The neighbors across the street get into some knockdown drag out. I pick up the phone and I call them, because that's what their job is. So anyway, initially the cost to do this trail extension down Wyoming was going to be, and before they overlay now, but it was going to be in the neighborhood of $6,000. Is that right? Correct. The Spring River Corridor was going to provide up to 50% of that money, because the city is going, we don't have any money, which is true. So we thought we were going to be doing a good service, providing a little bit of monetary help and whatever. But so it's unfortunate that now the barrels are in the front of the house instead of the carts. I have a cart. I don't find it to be any particular big deal. My wife can roll it out, or I can roll it out. So if somebody can't roll it out, then somebody else needs to step up. So other than that, I don't think I have anything more. If the committee has any more questions or anything like that.
Thank you.
We good?
Yep.
Cool. Thanks.
Ivan Hall. I live at 905 Mason Drive. Like Bob said, I'm very appreciative of the privacy factor. I understand it. I only think that as a biker and a walker, we used to live down on Penn Street by Roswell High, way back in the 80s. And I would ride my bike down Washington Avenue to get to Cahoon Park and wander up the alley. I've been doing that for 30 years. And I appreciate the privacy factor. but I've never encountered anybody that was displayed animosity towards me as being a citizen walking up a public right-of-way. One time, and it's true, Matt may remember it, I was walking up the alley and I saw Matt in the backyard. I stopped and talked with a good man, and all he said about my walking up the alley was, "Do not do it when I'm having a swimming party." And I said, 10-4. And I respect that aspect. As Bob has commented, I think the thing that drives a lot of us that are advocates for this is monetary. We're taxpayers too. We understand that the options are limited. The Montana issue, which this $100,000 plan talks about, that Montana, I think they call it a bike boulevard, would cost approximately $130,000. Sidewalks, driveway improvements, and then it would be a viable connection. You'd have to come up Montana, go down to Montana, and then back up 3 streets to the connection to Cielo Grande Trail. My point being is that's expensive. The other one over by the bird sanctuary, even more expensive. That's been looked at by people in Santa Fe because it might have some, in the future, might have some state highway department funding aspects. $180,000 to $90,000. The state finances are no better than the city of Roswell. They're in the pits. That won't happen in my lifetime for sure. I'm ranting a bit, but I don't know that there are any good options. I do want to mention that one time when I was, like I say, I've been up that alley for 10 to 30 years probably over time. One time after this, before Cielo Grande was in, I saw a man and a wife. She was pushing a baby buggy, and they were approaching the alley because that trail connection to Cielo Grande, like you point out, is right at the alley. They were going to go down the alley, and they saw how rough it was. They switched over and very carefully negotiated 8th Street down to Wyoming, which has limited sidewalks, has traffic, and with a baby in the middle of the street. The only reason that's not a fake story. That actually happened. I've seen this, not the same couple, but I've seen people negotiating 8th Street with a baby buggy. A man and wife with a baby buggy going down the street. Dangerous street. Should not even have bicyclers on it. It's not that wide. The plan, great job. The city, I know they got some financial assistance from the state, I think, on the plan. But this is a well-done plan. The staff worked good with the consultant out of Albuquerque. There's some really great ideas in here, but if the commission has a chance to particularly look at page 58, it has an illustration of the other 2 options. It doesn't, I don't think it talks about cost, but it shows the other options, the bird sanctuary connection to Cielo Grande and the Montana connection. Because of one word and one word only that I heard in every hearing, was this plan was aimed at connectivity. Roswell has a fairly good array of bike and hike trails, but they're not connected. And that's the only reason why we hammer on this with the city and with the citizens that I know have valid concerns, is that having the great potential to connect a 5-mile recreation trail to a 2-mile recreation trail has a lot of benefits for the Joe Blows of this town. People that have health issues and like to drive from anywhere in town, park at Cielo Grande or park at Cahoon Park, get out and exercise. This could be a tremendous asset to the city. It's pointed out in here. 8 miles of connected trail, free of traffic. I am sorry about the privacy aspect, but there's not going to be thousands of people going down that alley. There never has been, there never will be that many. There just aren't that many people out there, even if they were driving their pickups with bicycles in the back and parking at the golf course or parking at Cielo Grande or parking at Cahoon, getting their bikes out. There's not going to be over 100 do that in a day. You don't have to believe me, but they won't be that way. And think of it, at one time there was a plan put out by some outfit, and it was called Prescription Trails. And people that had health issues like diabetes, a doctor, their doctor could prescribe trail sections that they would prescribe to the patient, go out, get exercise, not on a bike, walk it, and use this trail system that is sitting there. And that really, I don't have diabetes. I'm fortunate. I'm in good health. I'm an old man, and I do not enjoy the fact that I don't enjoy the fact of being an old man. I used to ride that alley back before the surface went to pot, and now I only walk it. I still walk it, and I think it's my privilege as a citizen of Roswell who also pays taxes, and I am very respectful of the people that live there. I can walk my alley, and I think I should be able to. My wife and I walk our alley, not when the garbage trucks are going down it, but anyway, I appreciate your attention, and I hope we can work this out. I compliment the city on at least trying to find an option that works. This Spring River Corridor Foundation has been trying to make these two trails connect for 5 years now. We have a little bit of funds. We'd like to help the city get it done, but we can't participate at the level of a Montana connection or a bird sanctuary connection. That's way out of our means, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilors, any comments? No. Okay, just a couple of comments since you all came out. I do appreciate all the participation from our community. So first of all, that this is not, like I mentioned before, it's not an action item right now before us. So, and it would have to potentially I don't even know where Joe is on all this, if he's even up to speed on any of this stuff, but the city manager. But I think I want to speak generally, not to this specific issue, but generally to the sort of the role of the city council in situations like this. When someone moves into a neighborhood or buys a house or buys a business, they have a certain expectation of, I bought into this particular scenario. That's why we have things like zoning and stuff like that. So that there's a certain expectation, and obviously, if you want 100% control of something, you got to own everything. And that's not always possible or always the case, but certainly that there's that expectation. And any time that the city has the right to make changes to zoning. The city has the right to make changes to its property. But I think that what we always have to weigh in mind is if we're going to deprive a citizen of something that they understood, not a written agreement, an understood agreement coming in, because it's different, then there has to be a significant a benefit to the community at large in order to deprive one. And it's a pretty high threshold, in my opinion, to have that. So without debating the particular merits of this particular thing right now, because I think we're still early on in this process. There's a lot of, the budget issues, there's a lot of engineering questions, stuff like that. This isn't going to happen, and I appreciate, I know you guys probably have more to say, but since for the sake of time, since it's not urgent, if this comes up again, there'll be more opportunities to speak, but I do appreciate everything said. But I think as a counselor, I think and as the council, that's kind of our job, unfortunate as it is sometimes, is to make that determination. So I think that I appreciate everybody coming out, both people, and sharing their viewpoints. I know that we sure appreciate that. We appreciate your time and your participation. And we'll look at this again when it comes up again. So I don't have anything else unless all the other counselors are good. We'll move on to item F, item number 3. Thank you for coming in. You don't have to stay for the rest of this. It's not worth it. I drove by your backyard 20 minutes ago, so I don't want to see it. You're more than welcome to.
Susan,
We have email addresses.
Yeah, you can email that to me and I'll share it with the counselors.
Yeah, easy. Yep. Yeah. I can't guarantee that. I'm sorry. I don't know if he can guarantee that or not, but I would say I would issue that request in an email, send it to Lewis, and maybe carbon the city manager on it, and we can go from there. I don't want to guarantee. You can carbon the mayor too. The mayor doesn't have a vote in city council though, so he's not. So anybody, you're welcome. Those emails are all available. I would make that request that way. There's 3 right now.
3 right now of what?
10.
What wards? We have a Ward 3 here?
I don't believe so. I'm sorry, you had an opportunity to speak, sir. Is there something, a particular question?
I was just curious.
Sure.
As to what city
Yeah.
council we have. You guys don't, nobody here is Ward 3, so that doesn't cover our ward.
Sure, I think all counselors want to act in the best interest of all citizens. We don't really, if somebody calls me, I don't ask what ward they're in. I listen to them.
What I want to see is things that have happened in the past. It's pushed down, pushed aside, why it's down, and then it pushed onto the road, and all of a sudden it's happened.
Sure, well, if you can, talk to if you want to. Thank you. Mr. Nahar.
Mr. Chairman, we're here for consider resolution 20-XX, and of course, we don't get a resolution number until it goes to council, which supports New Mexico DOT project, control number L 2004-90, which is a local government fund project. Just to kind of keep it simple, the city for the past 3 years has been putting in for money to work on North Main project, and originally the original was for $378,000 to do a portion from McGaffey to Alameda, and then also College to Country Club. The DOT has come back and they're offering us $215,000 project with the 75-25 split. Based on the amount of money we're going to have available, if you look at the screen, go back to the previous slide. This is what we did in 2017. This is North Main between College and Country Club. We built it in 2012, but if you pay attention when it rains, that particular section gets a lot of rain and carries a lot of water, and water is very destructive to the pavement. So we went down there in 2012. All we did was do the outside lane closer to the curb, just because that's where most of the traffic is, and that's what carries most of the water. So in 2017, we did that with the Type 3 microsurfacing. Next slide, Juan. And then that's the pictures 2020. I took those this morning. So you can still see that the microsurfacing that we put on the outside lane, it's wearing down, but the inside lanes, it still needs some treatment. We are gonna get some money from the DOT. This is what you guys are requesting, that you support the resolution that the mayor will then sign after council if it passes. But based on money, I'll probably only be able to focus on North Main from College to 19th, or College to Country Club, just the worst areas, and try to do all 4 lanes. Again, this is just another maintenance operation, and I recommend we take advantage of it, because right now there's basically no budget for roads, so let's take whatever money we can get, and I stand for any questions.
Councilors, questions? I don't think I have any questions. I just wish the state would pick up a bigger part of the tab.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I know that's always the pushback I get on these. It's like, it's the state
You,
highway. They
you,
should
you
take
see in my daily battle, trying to, we have hundreds of miles of roads and very limited money.
Yeah. So if there's no comment, I'd entertain a motion.
Does this go to consent or
Consent agenda?
onto the consent? Okay. So I would make a motion to put this on the consent agenda for the July 9th, 2020 meeting, Resolution 20-XX, which supports New Mexico DOT project CNL 200-490.
Second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're on to item number 4.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Committee, you're here to consider award of RFP-20-004, engineering professional services and inspections to all proposers to establish a pool of vendors. Recommended vendors are Bohannon Houston, Souder Miller and Associates, HDR Incorporated, Smith Engineering, JSH Engineering LLC, and Improtech, Hibbs, and Todd Incorporated. What we did, we went out with an RFP for on-call services, so we would have a pool of vendors for any design services, construction inspection services, even take over a city engineer if something happens to me. So again, all we're doing, we took all the proposals, they all qualified. We want to put them all in the pool and have them all there ready whenever we need a project. We can get some quotes and avoid the RFP process, and we can move quicker to respond to any situations that we have. So I would recommend that all the vendors listed be approved as a pool for this RFP, and this item can go to consent agenda.
Great, and I'm going to ask some questions. I think I know the answer to, but just for clarification. So as this RFP, these people are then officially, they become on-call.
Correct.
It allows you to using budget that's approved budgeting without having to, it eliminates paperwork. I assume this doesn't apply for anything over a certain dollar amount that would still have to go out to, or what's the limit on this?
No, we've already done the RFP process, so
Okay.
now we do have passed procurement.
Okay.
What we would have to do would be ask for quotes,
Okay, quotes, yeah.
and then that would meet the rest of the procurement.
So so if there is a project that you want to put out to one of these people, you put it out to all of them, and they all give you quotes?
Well, they all have their specialty.
Sure.
So depending on the project, I would call out to Sanchez Engineering or Kennard Engineering and get a couple of quotes, and then we would take it from there.
Sure. So,
But it does eliminate a lot of the paperwork, because now we have an RFP pool on-call engineering.
sure. But the staff selects who that they are reaching out to.
Correct. We would do we would select who we would get quotes from.
Get quotes from,
And then depending on the quotes,
Right.
we would select. This came up, I mean,
I remember when this came through.
yeah, I mean, the first time
We
this
debated
came
it
up,
for a while.
if you remember, rest in peace, Mac Thomas. I lost one of my inspectors, so we had to go to through an inspection process, so we piggyback off the DOT.
Yep.
So this way, we could have vendors that we could just call out there and get some quotes, who's gonna give us the better deal. When you're trying to piggyback off of somebody, you're kind of stuck.
We did something like this with demolition.
With demolition,
Yeah.
we have a similar vendor pool for demolition and roofing.
Okay.
So all we're doing is now, for the professional service side, just gives us another club in the bag.
Great. Great. Any questions from counselors? Okay, if there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to consider award RFP-20-004 engineering, professional services and inspections to all proposers to establish a pool of vendors to go on the July 9th, 2020 City Council consent agenda.
And we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next we've got item number 5, award RFP 20-005 WWTP dewatering facility.
Mr. Chairman Committee, you're here to consider award RFP-20-005 wastewater treatment plant dewatering facilities to HDR Incorporated of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Again, the recommendation is to send this to consent agenda. If you look at the slide real quick, the left picture is the current dry bed where the finished product comes out and it just slowly dries there till it becomes a sludge or that you can haul off and use for fertilizers and stuff. What we're trying to do now is to modernize it and put in, and that's just a sample picture, a screw press operation. We would probably end up with just 2 of them. So you can basically squeeze the water out and the final product will dry quicker, especially in the winter and stuff like that. I mean, we're producing a lot of material, so we're just trying to be more efficient about it. Again, we've taken out a loan, $5.5 million, Clean Water Act loan, and it includes the design and construction. So we had 2 proposers. HDR had the most experience in short, and they were selected that way.
And yeah, and this has gone through council several times already, so we're pretty familiar with this. This is just the final lap, I guess. Any questions from any counselors? If not, I'd entertain a motion, and this can go to consent, correct?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to consider award of RFP-20-005 wastewater treatment plant dewatering facility to HDR Incorporated of Albuquerque, New Mexico, to the July 9th, 2020 City Council consent agenda.
Second? Okay, motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, review and ranking of infrastructure projects. Mr. Nahar.
Yes, short version, Mr. Chairman Committee, you're going to be presented 3 lists. Mr. Fuentes has been taking different lists of different committees to Mr. Committees, and I yield to Mr. Fuentes.
Let's see there. Did you sneak in, or were you here the whole time? Oh, you're on the other side, okay. You have 3 minutes now.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee members, so I'll be very brief. This will be the second year we're presenting the master list of all the capital projects for the city and all of the departments. What you see before you is just a list of those departments. As you have already heard and know, that there's a lot of capital needs but very little money. So what we're presenting here is a master list of all the projects. The intent is to allow for discussion and decision among staff and the city council on which projects are prioritized for funding. So the process for this review is the departments will be making a recommendation of their projects. What we're hoping for is for the committees to endorse at least the 1 or 2 projects, depending on what it's recommended by the departments, which then will be used for allocation either through the fiscal year 21 final budget. Also, we are required to adopt an ICIP, which is due in September. Those lists of projects will be used to create the ICIP list. And of course, in January coming up, the legislative session. As Louis mentioned, each of the departments are going through their respective committees and presenting their lists. Last week, the Public Safety Committee reviewed fire, police, emergency management office, and dispatch, and they have made their recommendations and were endorsed by the Public Safety Committee, the projects for those departments. So those will be going before the City Council. So with that, I will yield to Abraham Chaparro to begin to present his request.
Council, good afternoon. How you doing? One of our major requests we want to put forward, it was already funded in fiscal year 20, was a replacement of a scale house and adding of a quick scale at the landfill at the tune of about $220,000. You're going to notice on your list that it wasn't on your list. We want to reappropriate that for the next fiscal year. The project kind of got scrapped, and we're looking to kind of revive that project coming up in the next year. One of our number 2 items, what should be number 4 on the ranking, was the construction of cell number 5. Cell number 4 that we have open now is going to kind of lead into cell 5A. So we're looking to get the funds appropriated, put it on the ranking list for next fiscal year. On the collection side, what we're looking at is replacing 3 side loaders and a grapple truck, which is ranked number 5 on your list. Then also the replacement of a grapple truck and the last AMRAP side loader that's on route, which will be ranked number 6 as well. I'm open for any questions or comments. I also have my landfill supervisor here as well if you have any comments for him.
Question for, I guess, for Juan. Exactly what information is this? Are we covering all departments, all engineering related departments? Is this which department are we representing right now?
Mr. Chair, so right now it's just for landfill
Okay.
and the collection side. We also have water, wastewater, and coming up as well. making
Sure.
Their presentation.
Okay.
And engineering and streets.
Sure.
And let me elaborate on that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Basically, what we're looking at on these lists, we want the number 1 and 2 projects that will go to the ICIP list.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you remember, every year we come up with top 5
Yeah.
projects that go to our legislatures. So off of these top 3 lists, we're basically asking for Abraham to tell us number 1, number 2, Lorenzo Sanchez to tell us number 1, number 2. I'll represent streets. I'll tell you number 1, number 2, and then you guys ask questions. And of course, you have the privilege to change our number 1s and number 2s that go to recommendation. But basically, we're just doing a short list from these lists
Yep.
to go to the final ICIP selection. So, if Abraham, if you'll reiterate what your number 1 and number 2 is, I think that will make it much simpler.
Thank you.
So on the landfill side,
This is page 28 on the
yes.
packet. Page 20 of the packet, thank you. Go ahead.
So if you go down to number 4, you'll see the construction of cell number 5. So cell number 5, like I was stating, this will be our number 1 project for the landfill. So cell number 5 is just a large opening that we create at the landfill where we're going to start collecting our garbage. Kind of goes in conjunction with the closure of 4. So 4 is going to extend into 5. So that's kind of one of our top projects for the landfill. That would be our number 1. Our number 2 would be, that's not on your list, which I actually have here, that was funded in 2020, which would be the upgrade and replacement of the scale house and adding a quick lane. That's our number 2 for the landfill. The reasoning behind the landfill quick lane and upgrading the scales, we can service our customers quicker. The quick lane is designed for the garbage trucks, so when they come in, they don't wait in line for 15 to 20 minutes. They can come in, hit a manual scale, get scaled in, get weighed in, head off, and they return their route quicker. That's the intent. On the collection side, so our number 1, which is pretty common for collections, the replacement of the 3 side loaders, which would be item number 5, the rank item number 5 on your list on page 28. And number 2 was the replacement of a grappler truck and the last AMRAC side loader. So those would be our number 2.
Can Counselors, so what we're doing is, as far as that, if Juan's okay, do we need to take a vote on this, or can we just give feedback?
Well, the committee would like to endorse the top two recommended projects.
Do you want to vote?
If that way, yes, so that we can take those endorsed projects to the full council. Then the council
Sure.
will then in turn discuss all of those projects and all of those.
Sure.
any other project. So that's what the public safety committee did. And later this week, we're going to see.
Sure.
General services and
Okay, so then I think if we don't have any feedback, which I'll give you an opportunity in a second, but if we don't have feedback, then we just need to make a motion to accept the recommendations as presented. That would be the motion that we're going to be looking for. Again, none of these things cannot be undone. We're just trying to help staff move this process along. So is there any questions from any of the committee on the recommendations? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve, or not really, yeah. What, do you have particular language you want?
would you like to do it as an individual department or as a group when everybody presents it?
We should do it by individual department. So,
I'll make a motion to accept? Is that the
except,
word?
yeah, that's fine.
The recommendations
As presented.
as presented.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay,
A second?
so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
And you can go with the next group, please.
Okay, the next group would be Water Enterprise Fund and Lorenzo Sanchez, our utility director.
And just for reference, we're looking at page 30.
Page 30 and 31.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Lorenzo Sanchez. I'm the interim utilities director. Got the project list. So I'm going to be recommending actually four different departments. Okay, so it'd be water maintenance, water production, wastewater treatment plant, and the collection system. So it'll be a total of 8 projects that I'm recommending, the number 1 and 2 for each department. Okay. The first recommendation for water maintenance is large diameter valve replacement that would be on Orchard and 3rd Street, and that's at a cost of about $400,000. That includes the replacement of 3 large diameter valves and 2 valve insertions. The number 2 recommendation for water maintenance is to replace some surge/pressure relief valves. Those sit right behind the Hondo, behind Roswell Livestock, and that is at a cost of $300,000. And this will be the last set of relief valves. All the other ones have been replaced. This will be our last pressure relief valves that we have to replace. Okay, for water production, recommending to continue with the VFDs. They're variable frequency drives that go on the wells. So what they do is they go and put in the VFDs, and that ramps up the wells a whole lot slower, so it doesn't hammer our system, so it prevents a lot of damage to our infrastructure. Right now, they just ramp up, they slam on, and that's all. Right now, that's the recommendation for water production. So we only have 1 on that one. So the more we can get done, the better, but the costs go up. Wastewater treatment plant. It's a building improvement. We want to re-roof the digest building. It rains right now, and there's all kinds of water doing damage to the boiler and everything inside of that. A lot of the equipment is getting pretty bad. So we want to try to roll with that one. And number 2 would be the storm pond. We want to put an ingress and egress right now. They removed all the rocks that was holding all the lining for the storm pond. So there's no way to get in there and get all the vegetation out, cut it all down, trees, weeds, all the rest. So we can't really send the guys down in there. So we really want to get a way to get in and out of there. Okay, for the sewer, on the sewer side for a collection system, number 1 on the list is we want to replace a sewer line. It's approximately 385 feet of 6-inch clay tile sewer line. And that is on Lee Street between Lee and Missouri, and it is Alameda to Tilden. Has 14 sewer tie-ins and 385 foot of sewer line. And we're estimating the cost of that about $90,000. Number 2 on that list, we want to continue with the sewer rehab and the adjusted grade on the manholes. It's a continuing project. It's been going on for years. We want to continue that project. It continues the rehab of the manholes because, I mean, the gases and everything eat away at that. So we want to continue that because it's a continuous cycle. And that's about $250,000. And I don't know if I mentioned on the roof. The roof, we have an estimate of, for the digester building at $150,000. Okay, and with that, I stand for any questions.
Any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations as presented.
Second? Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Say nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then you're doing streets?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, committee, be page 32, the streets. Let me do a little prelude before I give my recommendations for the number 1, number 2. If you remember last year, 2 of these projects made the top 5, and I would request, and you won't vote on that now, but as you review the ICIP request, I understand utility and I understand landfill, but they do have their enterprise funds. This is going to the legislature, so I would appreciate that the bridges and the streets do not have an enterprise fund, and that's the reason why we've always had a bridge and we've always had a road project on the top 5 of the ICIP. We did get some money this year, but with COVID, Governor retracted that, vetoed that. So quite simply, we want to put the 2 same projects, or almost the 2 same projects, back on the ICIP plan. Number 1 would be McGaffey Street, which on your list is item number 12. And that would be McGaffey from Wyoming to Union. That's also on year number 1 of our 5-year street condition plan. And then I would ask for number 2 project would be bridge number 6091, which is item number 10, which did make the ICIP this year and was funded by legislature, but it was vetoed by the governor. And that's the little bridge right there before you go into the sale barn at Roswell Livestock, just north of Garden and Cherry. We did have the Federal Highway Association come down, Highway Works, the federal DOT. They came down because that is in real bad shape if you look under there. So very simply put, number 1 project would be McGaffey, Wyoming to Union. Number 2 project would be Bridge 6091. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Something that I am hoping that this committee will be addressing is the streets. And it's something that Mr. Nahars mentioned, is that the water, the sewer, those all have fees that pay for those. The users pay for those expenses through the fees that we all pay, our water bills and such. And those fees can be adjusted to cover expenses and the needed maintenance for those systems. The streets, on the other hand, are highly dependent on Mr. Nahar's ability to squeeze money out of the state and GRT. And so The one thing that, that this past year that engineering did do, they did the street study, and I've looked at it again since we was originally presented, and I think that we need to put some attention into that because at the end of the day, we want to not let our streets get to the point where we're having to spend more money to repair them because we didn't keep the maintenance up on them. And as many of you know, I've been riding around town on this little electric scooter, and you get to know the bumps in the streets really well on that thing. And we've got some issues with our streets, and I think that it's imperative for the city council to really dig deep into the challenges that we have with our streets, and come up with a solution about how we're going to keep these streets at the level they are, or hopefully improve them. Because what we don't want to happen is kick that can down the street so that 10 years from now, the bills are much, much higher, and the damage is much more severe, and we're going to end up paying a lot more money for something that if we would have taken care of in the first place. I mean, not unlike a roof on a house. If you don't take care of the roof, then eventually the whole house is ruined. And I think the streets are the same way, not being an engineer, but from what I'm told. So, and the other thing too, in this process is not only figuring out and coming up with a strategy that we can present to the full council on how to figure out what is our strategy, what level of, because the report that we were presented had a lot of different levels. What is our goal? We need to come up with a methodology of how we think we possibly can fund that over the next 5 years, and explore whatever those options are. We need to discuss all those options in this committee and bring that to full council, so that so we're doing a job for our citizens, which is protecting these assets. The roads are an asset that touches every single life in this city every single day. Dozens and dozens of times we're on the roads every single day, and so it also reflects what people think of our city when they're driving on our roads. They drive through town. If the roads are nice and crisp and clean, they think this is a nice place to be. If the roads are kind of all broken up and junky, they think, wow, this place is pretty dumpy. And so even the impression that we make for all of our people who are visiting, or for our property values, for all that thing, it's just such an important investment. And so I do say that to this committee in general, that this is something that I'm hoping to bring a lot of attention to. I'm hoping that we, over the course of the next 6 months to a year, we work with staff, closely with staff, and come up with a plan. Not only a plan that staff understands, but a plan that we can share to the council and that our citizens can understand, so they can look at this and say, okay, as we allocate money to this, or even if we go to the citizens and ask them for more money, this is what this is going to pay for. Very clear, concise communication. And so they can understand why we're prioritizing the roads the way we are. And that really, I'd love to at some point to even have a list so that people can say, okay, this is online, that this is right now, this is the projected when we're going to be working on these roads next. That clear, good communication with our constituents. So I just wanted to use that opportunity since we're on the roads to talk about that, and I will be working with staff on that. We'll be bringing stuff, and as you guys have ideas and you want to be a part of that conversation, I'm inviting everybody in this committee to get involved with that, so that hopefully in 6 months or so, we can be bringing something to council that says, here, we've developed a long-term plan on how we're going to, we've taken this information that they provided this very detailed, very scientific report on these roads, and saying, how are we responding to this? What is city council's response to that? So that's one of my goals with this committee. So it's a little sidetrack, but thank you for hearing me. Questions for the recommendations or on anything? Go ahead.
So regarding the street study, was there a presentation to the infrastructure committee previous to me?
Yeah, so I think that was maybe 4 months ago or so. It went to
The pavement condition study,
presentation here as well as to the full council.
and council, you should have it in your email, I'm going to
But
say November?
Yeah, but she wasn't on, I don't think.
In November when, no?
No.
I came on in January, so that's
Yeah,
what
I
I
don't
was
think
wondering
so.
Okay,
I don't think she was
I'll
on
send
one.
you the
Yeah.
PDF on the report.
Yeah, it was a lot of information, and really it was I remember the presentation, and they presented and they asked for comments, and really at that point we were all just like looking at it like, that's a lot of data to process.
Yeah, quite simply, at the $5 million más o menos that we do a year, we're not gaining, we're losing control of our roads. To stay at some sort of pace, they're asking for $9.9 million. To gain, it's $16 million a year, which is, we understand with the budget that we have, but again, it's a scientific approach. And what we did before COVID, we had already done our budget presentation. We had submitted to Mr. Fuentes, and we took the first year, and basically with the amount of money that we had, we were just going to address the first years of the big streets, which is the McGaffeys, the Hobbs, and that kind of stuff. So on the presentation we have right now, I mean, we're just asking for ICIP. McGaffey comes off the list as year number 1 recommendation. And then the bridge is the fourth worst bridge that we have in town. The first one is Garden Street. The second one is Lee Deming, which we have some money right now. We don't know if legislature is going to take that away in their special session right now. The third worst bridge is behind Fats Burrito. And the fourth worst bridge is the one right there on Garden and Cherry. So again, everything that we're presenting from engineering and street is based off of recommendations, scientific study, and reports, and we're just trying to go down the list.
Anything else?
No.
No. Yeah. And one thing too, even as we're looking at the whole process of the budget, and this has come up a lot as we've had to cut budget and where we can cut budget and why we can cut budget. We have a responsibility to maintain the roads for our constituents. As the city, and we need to, or if we're not maintaining them, they need to know that, hey, we're falling behind, and they can, they need to know this. We can't leave them in the dark on this information. And that's, I think, when we talk about some of these long-term changes with some of our other services about how they're getting funded, asking services to do cost recovery. In effect, as I've looked at the budget over the past couple of years, in effect, what we've done is we've taken money that probably should have been going to roads to maintain critical infrastructure, so we don't get behind on that. We've been taking that money, and we've been putting that into supporting very good things, but things that ultimately are not literally foundational as roads are to our community. And those are going to be hard decisions that we're going to have to make over the next couple of years, but we cannot go backwards on this. We cannot go backwards on roads, and that's why even in the language when we're talking about on some of these budget cuts, and when hopefully the economy returns very quickly, some of these departments will not get the same budget that they had in the past. And I think because we do need to, rapidly address this before it becomes, the millions and millions and millions of wasted dollars because we didn't address this when we needed to. So, and of course that just means hopefully more work for you guys. I think that's the other issue is making sure that you guys have capacity to where if we can find the money, we can spend it. So, I'm happy with the recommendations from streets on this. Any comments or any issues? We're good? Okay, so if I'll go ahead and entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations as presented.
Second? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I think that's it. Department reports?
Department reports are in your packet, and if you have any questions, I assume we still have department heads here
Sure.
to answer questions.
I'm good right now. So.
You're good? Okay.
And any other public here to comment?
And then public comments?
I don't see anybody.
We're
Okay,
good?
no? Good, okay. If not,
Next meeting is July 27th.
July 27th. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.